They've been around for centuries and operate in secret, but who have the Faceless men actually killed? And how has that influenced the story so far? Let's break down all of the assassinations we know or suspect might be down to them. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek. On this channel we go deep into A Song of Ice and Fire, as well as other fantasy worlds like The Lord of the Rings and The Witcher. If you like the sound of that, there's a subscribe button in the bottom right of your screen. Who have the Faceless men killed that we know of in the story of A Song of Ice and Fire and earlier? It's an intriguing question because their entire modus operandi is to conduct assassinations in secret, often making them look like accidents. If they succeed, and as far as we can tell they almost always do, we may not even know. The Faceless men have been around for centuries, originating in the mines beneath Old Valyria. The kindly man tells Arya stories of that time, including of their first assassinations, of slaves who cried out for release, then of slave masters. I have speculated elsewhere that they are responsible for the doom of Valyria itself. If so, they were responsible for far more deaths in that one act than the rest of their history put together. But even besides that, we should probably acknowledge that not all deaths associated with the Faceless men are assassinations. Their temple in Braavos is open for people to come, drink of the waters of the Black Pool, and slowly slide into eternity. From what we can tell from Arya's chapters, this happened a few times every day, so a lot of people. But we're here to talk about the assassinations. Over the centuries that followed the Faceless men setting themselves up in Braavos, there will have been many of them, and mostly in Braavos. Even by the time of A Song of Ice and Fire, not many people in Westeros had even heard of them, let alone travelled all the way to another continent to hire them. For that reason, and the cost, and the sneaky way that they went about their business, I think we can discount quite a few of the obvious murders that they are sometimes blamed for. Again, if a death looks like a murder, then there's a good chance that it actually wasn't a faceless man. They're better than that. A good example of this is the death of Septon Moon, early on in Jaehaerys I's reign, that we read about in Fire and Blood. Some believed that the half-naked woman who fled his tent screaming was one of the Faceless men, since Septon Moon himself followed after, with his throat slit. Plenty of people wanted Moon dead, but would a Faceless man really run screaming so obviously through a camp of armed men like that? Or would they just slip off quietly without anyone noticing? I think we know. It is also sometimes speculated that the letter King Aegon I, the Conqueror, received from Prince Nymor Martell may have been a threat to hire the Faceless men to kill himself or his son Aenys. Again, I suspect that this is a no. I've done a video elsewhere setting out why, but all the context clues are that, after it, Aegon and Nymor actually got on quite well. Not how you'd expect Aegon to react to a death threat. Another death the Faceless men are accused of in Fire and Blood, or a hiring we should say, for we don't actually know who was killed, is brought to us by Mushroom. Of course, of all the sources in Fire and Blood, Mushroom can be counted on to produce the most salacious. But according to Mushroom, Sir Dennis Hart, an otherwise obscure knight, this is the only time we hear of his name, during the regency of Aegon III, hired the Faceless men to assassinate a rival in King's Landing. Hart was in Braavos as part of a diplomatic mission, and that's all we know. So, in the absence of any other information, why not chalk this one up to them? Not long after, however, we do learn of two deaths that it would be hard to imagine anyone else doing. The Bank of Rogaer in Lys had risen to great power, so great that it briefly eclipsed the mighty Iron Bank of Braavos, and they were expanding into Westeros, so even greater wealth and power seemed to beckon. The brains and ambition behind this rise were the brothers Lysandro and Drzenko Rogaer. In Fire and Blood, we read this. The two Rogaers died within a day of each other, both under suspicious circumstances. Drzenko perished first, choking to death upon a piece of bacon. Lysandro drowned when his opulent barge sank whilst carrying him from his perfumed garden back to his palace. Though a few would insist that their deaths were unfortunate accidents, many more took the manner and timing of their passings as proof of a plot to bring down House Rogaer. The Faceless men of Braavos were widely believed to have been responsible for the killings. No more subtle assassins were known to exist anywhere in the wide world. So skillfully had the brothers been removed that not even the fact of murder could be proved. The result, combined with events in King's Landing and much politicking in the Free Cities, was the downfall of the Bank of House Roger, and the Iron Bank of Braavos once more regained its preeminent position. As Archmaester Gildane concludes, the most obvious solution is that the Iron Bank hired the Faceless men to take out their rival, all very behind the scenes. The first time we unambiguously see a Faceless man in action is in A Song of Ice and Fire, of course. I set out in an earlier video in this series why I think Jaqen H'ghar was in King's Landing, but the first clear assassinations he does are in Harrenhal at the behest of Arya. First, she names Chiswick. He has an accident 3 days later, falling from a walkway and breaking his neck. Then there is Weiss, whose dog tragically turns on him and kills him. 2 classic Faceless men deaths. Suspicious, yes, but easily written off as accidents. The third incident is less accidental. Arya blackmails Jaqen into helping her free the northern prisoners. Jaqen, Rorg and Biter between them kill the 8 guards. Rorg and Biter don't appear to be Faceless men, but we see Jaqen personally kill one, so that is the third that he claimed to owe Arya. If we follow Arya to Braavos, we see the inner workings of the Temple of Black and White and how the Faceless men seem to divvy up their commissions. We don't see or hear who the victims are, but one of the jobs is taken on by the assassin Arya describes as the Handsome Man, and another by the Squinter. Later that same chapter, Arya takes on a commission herself to kill a ship insurance broker, which she does by slipping him a poison coin, knowing that he always bit into coins before accepting payment. His heart gave out soon after. Of course, Arya kills 2 others while in Braavos. Darian, a deserter from the Night's Watch, who she kills because he deserted from the Night's Watch, and therefore in her morality deserved it, and Raff the Sweetling, in the pre-release chapter of The Winds of Winter at least, who was on her list for the crime of killing her friend Lomi back in A Clash of Kings. Although Arya did both of those murders while training at the House of Black and White, I don't think we can truly call them Faceless men assassinations. They are vengeful Arya killings. But one that we can very probably chalk down to the Faceless men took place the previous year over on Pike and the Iron Islands. The death of Balon Greyjoy happens off-screen. We just hear about it after the event, and true to the Faceless man's style, it appears to be a complete accident. He fell from one of those precarious-looking walkways between the great sea stacks of Castle Pike. He was in fine health, but there was a storm, and the pious among the Ironborn could be easily persuaded that it was the judgment of the drowned god throwing their king into the waters. So, to most people, this was just one of those things. But George R.R. Martin gives us clues that there's more here than meets the eye. Euron, the dead king's brother, rather conveniently arrives back in Pike the very next day after being exiled for years, before news of Balon's death had travelled far, and he immediately claimed the Seastone chair for himself. Again, perhaps circumstantial, but it does spookily echo another rumour we had of the Faceless men killing another royal of the Iron Islands from back before Aegon's invasion. Prince Harlan Hoare was heir to the Iron Islands and would inherit very soon as his father was terminally ill, but then he unexpectedly fell from his horse and died, leaving his brother to become king. The echoes to Euron are strong. Both were younger brothers, both sailed far and wide, including Braavos, where the Faceless men are based, of course, had fearsome reputations, and Harwin then proceeded to launch a full-scale attack, not just a traditional raid, on mainland Westeros, like Euron is foreshadowed to do. Anyway, the Faceless man Euron link has more evidence. The ghost of High Heart, who seems to be very trustworthy prophecy-wise, says this just a few days later. I dreamt of a man without a face, waiting on a bridge that swayed and swung. On his shoulder perched a drowned crow, with seaweed hanging from his wings. As visions go, this seems pretty straightforward. A bridge that swayed and swung is the bridge at Pike, in a storm. A man without a face is a faceless man, and on his shoulder, presumably the man who hired him, is a drowned crow with seaweed hanging from his wings. Euron is called the Crow's Eye, and he's an Iron Islander, hence a drowned crow. All of which is backed up by an apparent admission of guilt by Euron himself in the Forsaken pre-release chapter from the Winds of Winter. We should point out that these pre-release chapters aren't canon yet, and won't be unless and until they appear in the Winds of Winter itself, but they certainly show where George R. R. Martin's mind has gone. And in that chapter, Euron brags to Ariel, one of his other brothers, that "I have killed 3 brothers. Balon was the 3rd. I could not do the deed myself, but it was my hand that pushed him off the bridge." Eren is shocked that Euron has killed 3 of his brothers, but crucially it's the other murders of their half-brothers Harlan and Robin that shocked him. He'd already worked out that Euron killed Balon. The revelation here is that he didn't do it personally. He got someone else to do it for him. Who? Well, as the Ghost of High Heart put it, a man without a face. There's a whole other wormhole you can go down here if you want to, pondering exactly how Euron might have paid the price for a king's death, because that would be very expensive. Might he have given them a dragon's egg? He claims he once had them. Anyway, I think it's pretty clear that Balon Greyjoy was killed by the Faceless Men, hired by Euron. Perhaps this was even done by the same Faceless man we know as Jaqen H'ghar that was with Arya at Harrenhal, then appears a bit later in Old Town. The timelines fit, but we can't really know for sure. We can, however, be pretty confident that the mysterious figure we meet in the prologue to A Feast for Crows, known only as the Alchemist, is Jaqen. I covered this in more detail in the last video, but the key point is that they are described in exactly the same way, and he rather brazenly introduces himself as no one. He proceeds to then kill Pate, a novice in the Citadel, using the poisoned coin method that we saw Arya use over in Braavos. Why Pate? Well, again, that's the subject of another video, so check that out if you're interested, but this doesn't seem to be a contracted killing, rather a way to get his hands on a master key to all the locks in the Citadel. Might we expect more Faceless Men assassinations in the last 2 books in the series? Absolutely. Jaqen is still in Old Town on a mission, so it seems possible there will be at least one more there. Arya is still training in Braavos, though perhaps not for much longer if the Faceless Men finally accept that she won't give up her identity as Arya Stark of Winterfell, or if she learns that her siblings still live in Westeros. And I do suspect that there may be a spate of other accidents in Braavos soon. The politics of Braavos is complex, subtle and bloody, and the Faceless Men currently seem very focused on learning about the gossip of what is going on outside their temple. World politics is shifting, with Dany's rise in Slaver's Bay, revolution in the air in Valence, and endless infighting in Westeros. Braavos will need to start taking sides, and that might mean changing political leadership. And in Braavos, that often means the involvement of the Faceless Men. We will probably just hear rumours of accidents and political turmoil, but we know what that means. The Faceless Men have a big role yet to play in this story. If you'd like to see more videos about the world of Ice and Fire, particularly this series of videos about the Faceless Men, please click on the link on the left of your screen now. Or to support this channel, the best way to do that is to click on the link on the right of your screen now. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.